Hi, this is Calandra. In this video, we will cover evaluating algebraic expressions. So in order to evaluate an algebraic expression, that means that you're going to substitute a number for your variable to evaluate it. You need to keep the order of operations in mind. So there are a couple of ways you can remember the order of operations. The way that I usually remember it is by the phrase, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." The P stands for parentheses, so you want to make sure to do whatever's inside of your parentheses first. Once your parentheses have been simplified, you need to do your exponents. Then you're going to do multiplication and division, whichever comes first from left to right. And the last thing that you do will be addition and subtraction. Again, whichever comes first from left to right. Now, one thing I want to mention is, along with parentheses, at that same level, you want to make sure that you also simplify whatever's inside your absolute value. Or if you have a radical, like a square root, you want to simplify those as well at the same level as you do your parentheses. Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's go through this example where we want to evaluate the following algebraic expressions. So we have 4t divided by 12t squared for t equal to -1. So I'm going to substitute in my value of t, which is -1. So I have 4 times -1 divided by 12. Remember, when there's no operation between the number and the variable, or even between two different variables, it's understood to be a multiplication. So we have 12 times t squared. So since t is -1, we want to square the whole thing, so you have to have parentheses around the -1. Okay, so according to our order of operations, the next thing that I should do is my exponent, because we can't simplify inside of our parentheses. -1 is as simplified as it gets. So I have 4 times -1 divided by 12 times -1 squared means -1 times -1, which is a +1. So now we're going to do multiplication and division, whatever comes first, as we go from left to right. So I have 4 times -1, which is -4, okay, divided by 12 times 1. So next, I have -4 divided by 12. I'm going to write that as a fraction because it's a little bit easier to see. So -4 divided by 12, and then we're going to have that quantity times 1. Well, anything times 1 is itself, so we know that this will equal -4/12. And whenever you have a fraction, you want to simplify that fraction. So 4 can go into both the top and the bottom. 4 can go into -4, -1 times. 4 can go into 12 3 times. So -1/3 would be our answer. You never want to give your answer as a rounded decimal unless the problem asks you to do that. You always want to give an exact value for your answer. Okay, going on to part B. Okay, we want to evaluate this absolute value expression where x equals 2 and y equals 3. So I'm going to start off by plugging in the values of my variables. So we have 4 times 2 squared. If you wanted to put parentheses around that 2, you can. The reason why it's not important here is because we don't have a -2. If there were a negative, it would be very important to have parentheses so that you can make sure to square the negative as well. Let me just take a little tangent and write off to the side what I mean. If we had a -2 in parentheses squared, that means that we have -2 times -2. Negative times negative gives us a positive, and we'd have a +4. if we did not write parentheses and we had a negative 2 squared, this is saying that we're going to take the opposite of whatever 2 squared is. The negative is not part of what's being squared. This means that we have negative 2 times 2, or negative 4. So this is why it's important to have your parentheses when they're needed, because sometimes they are necessary. Okay, so going back to our problem, we plugged in our 2 for x, minus 8 times our y value is 3. So now we're working within our absolute value because it's at the same level as parentheses. So within our absolute value, the next thing that we need to do is the exponent. So 2 squared is equal to 4. So I have 4 times 4 minus 8 times 3. So now I can do my multiplications. So 4 times 4 is 16. We keep the subtraction. 8 times 3 is 24. Well, 16 minus 24 is negative 8. So now we have the absolute value of negative 8. Well, the absolute value of a quantity is going to make whatever you're finding the absolute value of positive. So the absolute value of negative 8 is positive 8, and that's our answer. In our last example, we want to evaluate this expression, and we have these values for x sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 1, and y sub 2. So in the numerator, we're starting with y sub 2, which is 5, minus y sub 1, which is negative 3, divided by x sub 2, which is negative 1, minus x sub 1, which is 3. All right, so we need to simplify the numerator and the denominator separately before trying to simplify the entire fraction. So notice in the top we have a negative 3. That in essence means a negative 1 times negative 3. So two negatives cancel out to make that positive. So we have 5 plus 3 in the numerator. Negative 1 minus 3 gives us a negative 4 in the denominator. 5 plus 3 is 8, still divided by negative 4. So we can do that division to come up with negative 2 for our answer.